Number 7. Scam Artists. In 2021, a pair of women were arrested by police in Miami Beach, Florida, after they robbed a tourist and made off with thousands of dollars. The suspects were identified as 20-year-old Kimberly Ann LeBron Martinez and 19-year-old Elizabeth Labby. According to police reports, the girls met the tourist from Texas on Collins Avenue on Friday, September 24th, and asked him to have a drink with them. He didn't want to drink at first, but he continued to hang out with the women. The three of them went to Sonny's Bar and Restaurant until it closed. After that, they headed to Collins Park and picked up more alcohol at a gas station on their way there. The arrest report explained that while the group was at the park, the victim was given a beverage, but after he drank it, he felt like he was drugged and lost consciousness. Kimberly and Elizabeth then robbed the man of his $10,000 Omega watch, credit and debit cards, a gold chain, and his white Yeezy sneakers. Not long after, the girls began making purchases with the stolen cards. Over the next 16 hours, the pair spent $15,000 of the victim's money. Luckily, their car was spotted a couple days later and they were quickly arrested by police. When Kimberly was questioned by detectives, she reportedly confessed to spiking the man's drink and said she used a mixture of crushed Xanax and water. Elizabeth and Kimberly are now facing charges of grand theft, unlawful possession of a stolen credit card, robbery, and fraudulent use of identification. As of now, it's unclear whether the girls received jail sentences for their crimes. Number 6. Killer Twins. Identical twins Tasmia and Jasmia Whitehead were just 16 years old when they murdered their mother in Conyers, Georgia in May of 2010. For most of their lives, the girls were raised by their great-grandmother, Della Frazier. However, when the girls were 13, their mother Nikki regained custody of them, and they went to live with her from then on out. Tasmia and Jasmia clashed with Nikki, and they saw the woman as controlling and hypocritical of everything they did. Sometimes disputes between them would turn violent, and after the two girls were sent to juvenile court for their behavior, their great-grandmother was once again given custody of them. However, this didn't last long, and on January 5, 2010, the girls were back in the care of their mother. Just 8 days later, Nikki's body was found dead in the bathroom of their home with multiple stab wounds, and she appeared to be badly beaten. At first, Nikki's boyfriend, 55-year-old Robert Head, was thought to be guilty of the crime, since the twins claimed they were the ones that found their mom's body. But Robert was later cleared after DNA testing cleared him of the crime. Bite marks found on Nikki would ultimately reveal the real culprits of the crime, the twins. Tasmia and Jasmia initially pleaded not guilty to the charges, but in 2014, they both confessed to the murder of their mother. In the end, the girls were sentenced to serve 30 years in prison. They were eligible for parole in 2017, but it doesn't seem like either of them have been released. Number 5. Indecent Exposure. In Ocean City, New Jersey, in August of 2022, a pair of women were arrested for indecent exposure after they were seen swimming naked in a private pool. 40-year-old Mandy Mary Ruggeber from Liverpool, New York, and her friend, 37-year-old Brandy Marie Duxbury from East Greenbush, were identified as the suspects. The incident occurred on August 24th at around 4 in the morning near the city street of Robin Drive. When authorities arrived at the scene, they found that both women were intoxicated and Duxbury was completely naked. The girls were laughing and yelling at one another when police showed up. Ruggeber was standing next to the locked gate entrance outside the pool area, while Duxbury was already inside. When police asked her how she gained access to the private pool, Duxbury explained that she hopped over the fence. The officers tried to open the gate, which then caused Duxbury to jump into the pool in order to avoid arrest. When they told her to get out of the water, she initially refused, but she finally did as she was told. When she came out of the pool, an officer covered her naked body with a poncho. While police escorted Duxbury out of the gated area, Ruggeber continued to yell and scream, which ended in her being arrested as well. The women gave fake names to the officers at first, but the truth came out after a while. Apparently, as they were interrogating the girls on the sidewalk, Ruggeber exposed her private parts as she laid on her back, possibly trying to seduce the men. Unfortunately for her, it didn't work. Mandy Mary Ruggeber and Brandy Marie Duxbury were consequently charged with indecent exposure. disorderly conduct, trespassing on private property, and hindering, obstructing an investigation. They were supposed to appear in court on September 26th, but at the moment, their punishment is unknown. Number 4. Professional liars. 2 women from Texas threatened to kidnap and kill a man after they all got frisky in the backseat of his car in a parking lot in 2022. On September 14th, officers responded to a 911 call from a man who claimed there was a person with a gun at a Family Dollar store. The caller said there were 2 females trying to kill him and that one of them had a knife while the other had a handgun. When they arrived at the scene of the alleged crime, they saw an adult man running near the road. He quickly made it known that he was the one who called 911, and he pointed out the 2 suspects who were discovered nearby in the Family Dollar parking lot. The 2 women were identified as 23-year-old Jasmine Arlene Rojas and 17-year-old Cassandra Alexis Garza Rangel, and they were both taken into custody to be questioned. Apparently, the duo gave different explanations for what had happened, but police didn't believe their stories. The man told officers that earlier that day, he picked up Cassandra from a house in the 500 block of Musser Street. The 2 of them then drove to an abandoned house where they got it on. Then afterwards, he dropped Cassandra back off at the residence he picked her up from. Later that day, the woman called him again and asked him to take her and Jasmine, her cousin, to an H-E-B grocery store that was nearby. However, on the way to the store, the man claimed to overhear Jasmine setting up what he believed was some kind of a drug deal. When she hung up on the phone call, their plans changed, and they asked to be taken to the Family Dollar instead. When they arrived at their destination, he said that he parked the vehicle in the dark, empty parking lot, and Cassandra and Jasmine then asked him to join them in the back seat. This is when they all allegedly got frisky with one another. Jasmine apparently wanted to blindfold the man with her red top, but he told her no. When he told them he didn't want to fool around anymore, Jasmine attempted to stab him with a knife. When he tried to exit the car, Cassandra grabbed him by the shirt. He then explained that after they stopped him from getting out of the vehicle, they told him he was being kidnapped and they were going to kill him. He said he barely made it out alive, but finally managed to get out of the car just as Jasmine told Cassandra to grab the gun from her purse. Not surprisingly, the women claimed the events leading up to the crime happened differently. Jasmine said the man gave them a ride to the Family Dollar, but then sexually assaulted her and her cousin. Cassandra claimed that they were walking down the road when the man pulled over and offered them a ride. When they arrived at the Family Dollar, she said he pulled out a condom, which made them think he was about to assault them. This was their explanation for trying to get their gun. However, investigators began to suspect the girls were lying after all of them were questioned and gave different stories. Officers also found the man's identification and wallet in Cassandra's possession, which only seemed to prove that the women were at fault in this situation. In the end, Jasmine Arlene Rojas and Cassandra Alexis Garza Rangel were charged with 1 count of aggravated robbery, but their sentencing remains unclear. Number 3. Mean Girls. In 2012, Skylar Neese, a 16-year-old honor roll student from Star City, West Virginia, was stabbed to death by her supposed best friends after they decided they no longer liked her. Skylar climbed out of her bedroom window on July 6th of that year in order to meet up with her besties, Rachel Schoaf and Sheila Eddy. However, that would be the last day Skylar would be seen alive. The trio's relationship started to go south as the bond between Rachel and Sheila grew, which left Skylar feeling like a third wheel. It started to become clear that Skylar was no longer wanted in their friend group, and Rachel and Sheila came up with a plot to get rid of her for good. After Skylar never returned home after sneaking out that night, she was reported missing by her parents. Sheila later called the Neese residents to let them know the 3 of them had gone out that night to get high, but she claimed they dropped Skylar back off at the end of her street so they wouldn't wake them up. This story held up for a while, but the truth was later revealed. It became evident to detectives investigating the case that Skylar's so-called friends were involved in her disappearance, as they showed no remorse for their missing bestie. They also gained access to the security cameras from the night of Skylar's disappearance, which showed a car picking her up. When they found out the vehicle belonged to Sheila, police cross-referenced surveillance footage from various nearby businesses from that night and found the same car at a convenience store in Blackstone. Sheila and Rachel were then named the prime suspects in the case, but they didn't have enough evidence to arrest them. But on December 28th, Rachel finally cracked under the pressure and confessed to the murder. She told officers everything and claimed that she and Sheila had stabbed Skylar and then left her body in the woods just across the Pennsylvania border. Skylar's body was later found, and Rachel and Sheila were charged with the murder. Rachel was found guilty of second-degree murder and was given a 30-year sentence, while Sheila was charged with first-degree murder and was ordered to spend the rest of her life behind bars. Number 2. It's a trap. Michaela Paulus and her boyfriend, Adam Simji, were taking a drive along an Alabama forest road in August of 2022 when they were attacked by a couple of women posing as damsels in distress. Simji and Paulus were students at the University of Central Florida, and they decided to take one final road trip together before the start of their fall semester. As they drove along the Talladega National Forest Road, they stopped to help a woman and her friend who claimed to be stranded. However, as they got out of their vehicle to assist them, one of the women, Yasmin Hyder, pulled out a gun to rob them. She ordered the couple to go into the woods as her friend, Crystal Pinkins, watched the events unfold from a distance. But what Hyder failed to notice was that Simji had a concealed pistol. He then pulled out his weapon and tried to fight back against the women. He shot at Hyder, who returned his fire, but Pinkins fled into the woods. Unfortunately, Simji was hit, and he passed away from his injuries as his panicked girlfriend desperately performed CPR. Before Simji died though, he shot Hyder as well, but she somehow survived the gunshot. Paulus called the police, and when they arrived, Hyder was quickly arrested. Officers then searched the woods for Pinkins, and to their surprise, they came across an entire camp of people living in the forest. As they approached the camp, Pinkins' 5-year-old son met the officers with a loaded shotgun. The boy was disarmed without incident, and Pinkins was arrested for her involvement in the crime. Both women were charged with kidnapping, robbery, and murder. Pinkins was also given an extra charge for child endangerment. Due to a gag order, nobody is able to speak with the press regarding the case, and so, for the time being, their sentencing remains unclear. Number 1. Needless violence. In Santa Ana, California, 2 women were arrested for fatally beating 23-year-old Kim Pham on January 19, 2014, outside of a nightclub. The culprits of the crime were 26-year-old Vanessa Zavala and 27-year-old Candice Brito. That night, Pham and a group of her friends were taking pictures together outside the club, formerly known as the Crosby, when Brito and Zavala's acquaintance, only identified as Amelia, accidentally ran into Pham. It sparked a verbal altercation between them, but the defendants took things way too far and began to physically attack Pham, knocking her to the ground. As Pham laid on the floor, Brito and Zavala started kicking her over and over in the head. Pham sustained severe brain damage from the assault, and she passed away 2 days later in the hospital. The women responsible for her death were convicted of the crime in July with charges of assault and manslaughter. During their trial, Pham's distraught family pleaded with the judge and jury to give them the maximum sentence of 11 years in jail. However, at their official sentencing, they were each only given 6 years behind bars. Brito and Zavala apologized profusely for their actions, and they truly seemed remorseful for what they'd done. This case took place back in 2014, so both women are free today, and hopefully, they've learned from their mistakes.
Number 10. Maria Licciardi. Where is a woman's place in the mob? Does she even have one? Is the rise in women's involvement in organized crime revealing the hidden, darker side of the fairer sex? Apart from an increased presence in the legitimate workplace, it appears like a reworking of the mafia's traditional male attitudes, only cloaked in the guise of a woman. Here is the tale of a mafia boss lady Maria, who is popularly known as the Godmother. She was a crime boss for 8 years until she was arrested and put behind bars. She was responsible for extortion rackets, drug trafficking, and prostitution. Their gang was also responsible for killing sex slaves who were of no use to them anymore. Though she is incarcerated, it is believed that she still gives commands to the clan. Maria Licciardi led the Camorra crime syndicate in Naples, Italy from 1993 to 2001 before her empire started to unravel. She went into hiding when a dispute over heroin among groups resulted in killing as many as 100 people in Naples, and she was added to the 30 most wanted Italians list. The extortion of local business owners, drug trafficking, and the infiltration of public work contracts are traditional sources of illicit revenue for the Naples-based Camorra, one of Italy's major crime syndicates. The 70-year-old Italian mafia boss, who was hoping to visit her daughter, was arrested at the Ciampino airport in Rome. She was cuffed by the Italian military police while waiting in the queue leading to the check-in desk. She didn't bat an eyelash when the officers blocked her. Number 9. KD Campana, aka Cyanide Malika. Women are deadly. Whether you want to take that in a good way or bad is completely up to you. While some can kill you with just a smile, there is a handful who take the word deadly more literally. Here is a story of a gruesome female serial killer who went on a killing spree. This merciless woman was known to murder her victims by poisoning them with cyanide. News of the mysterious murders was coming from different places in the country. The killer apparently targeted women in the same manner and gave hints of an elusive serial killer. The killer was targeting only those married women who were still wearing their wedding dresses, and all these crimes took place within 7 to 8 months. Here is how she worked out her plan. The killer would visit temples near Bangalore, India, posing as a devotee to keep an eye out for women who were in distress. Having spotted one, she would then try to gain their confidence by hearing out their issues and advising them to perform a special puja to ward off the evil from their lives. Little did they know that they were already dealing with evil. She used to pretend to be a good woman and convinced her, quote, devotees to meet her at secluded spots, after which she would poison and rob them. She chose her victims well. They had to be married and from wealthy families. The woman in question, Campana, was India's first convicted female serial killer who killed 6 women. She was caught when she tried to peddle off jewelry that she stole from one of her victims. She was sentenced to death, which was later reduced to life imprisonment, because crime has no gender. Number 8. Jolly Thomas. If you thought the previous tale about the cyanide serial killing was gruesome, check this one out. This woman killed 6 family members and was planning to kill 2 more kids. Jolly is accused of murdering 6 members of her family over the course of 14 years because they owned family property. Jolly confessed to all the murders, including her first husband Roy, her father-in-law, mother-in-law, and her mother-in-law's brother and kids in the family. The news sent shocking waves across India in 2019. The suspicion started after Roy's death, Jolly's first husband, in 2011. Jolly allegedly didn't waste time in trying to get the family property for herself. In fact, the procedures for the transfer were almost complete. However, Roy's brother, Roho, realized this and transferred all ownership rights back to his father. When Jolly brought it up again in 2017, the brother looked at Roy's post-mortem report again and felt suspicious of Jolly's behavior. The family soon filed a confidential complaint with the police. The killer had got the idea of using cyanide after reading deaths related to cyanide in a newspaper article, after which she had done a lot of research on how to use cyanide. The cyanide serial killer currently resides in Kozhikode District Jail and has been charged with murder, conspiracy, destroying of evidence, and forgery. Number 7. Griselda Blanco, aka La Dama de la Mafia, the Lady of the Mafia. So we introduced you to another godmother earlier in this video, and now here comes the cocaine godmother. In other words, mafia boss Lady Griselda Blanco, who is popularly known as the cocaine godmother or Queen of Cocaine. This fearless, uncompromising, and ruthless Colombian queenpin ruled the cocaine trade. The concept or the trend of motorbike drive-by shooting was made popular by this deadly criminal. According to reports, she gave orders for more than 200 murders while carrying on her drug business. During her reign of terror, she made numerous enemies throughout Colombia and the United States, and she would do anything to eliminate them. Shopping mall shootings, drive-by motorbike hit squads, home invasions. All in all, Griselda Blanco was responsible for up to 250 murders. It was her second husband who introduced Blanco into the cocaine trade. Blanco had an ingenious way to smuggle cocaine into New York. She had young women fly on planes with cocaine hidden in their underwear, which Blanco had specifically designed. Upon the death of her second husband, she earned a new title, the Black Widow. More importantly to Blanco, she was now in full control of her drug empire. Blanco was merciless. If you didn't pay on time, you and your family were eliminated. If she didn't want to pay you, you were assassinated. If she perceived that you had slighted her, you were bumped off. Blanco lived lavishly. Homes, expensive cars, a private jet. She had it all. Nothing was off limits. She hosted parties frequented by a who's who of the drug world. Despite her luck, she had made too many enemies, and in 2012, she was shot twice in a motorbike drive-by shooting in Medellin, Colombia. Number 6. Janine Jones. As a pediatric nurse, the main duties would be providing critical and preventive care to infants, children, and adolescents. But this is one of the most heartless women to have ever lived in the world of medicine. Janine Jones, a pediatric nurse who killed almost 46 babies in 1977. She's also known as the Angel of Death, and she carried out her murders while the infants were put under her care and used injections to induce heart attacks that proved lethal for the babies. Jones would inject digoxin, heparin, and other drugs to create a medical situation in a patient. She had meant to revive them, but many children did not survive the damage inflicted initially by the poisons. Most children died due to heavy doses. Jones aroused suspicion in Caryville near San Antonio when a doctor found a puncture in a bottle of newly diluted succinylcholine. A baby died after a routine checkup and some shots. Right after Jones gave the baby those shots, she stopped breathing and was rushed to the hospital. Jones was given a sentence of 99 years in jail in the year 1985. Her scheduled year of parole was slated to be 2018. Can murder be crueler than this? Number 5. Shashikala Ramesh Pankar, aka Baby. Can you picture a milk vendor to be one of the most prolific drug peddlers the world has ever seen? The recreational drug mephedrone, popularly called Meow Meow, was allegedly brought to Mumbai, India by a woman who was a milk vendor in the city named Shashikala Ramesh Pankar, aka Baby. As soon as she realized the profit in selling drugs, she gave up her job as a milk seller and started peddling drugs. Soon she would make a name for herself in the drug circuit. Pankar's husband and brother were both addicted to drugs, and it was she who used to arrange the contraband for them. That's how she entered the world of narcotics. Pankar's modus operandi was simple. She used to get drugs from dealers to sell them in Mumbai. She would keep a certain portion of the pure drugs with herself and mix the rest with impure substances known as taka in narcotics jargon. Later, she would return the mixed contraband to the original dealer, saying she could not sell them as they were inferior quality. As the dealers left, she would tip off the police, leading to their arrest. She changed 25 SIM cards to avoid being tracked down after these calls. After dealing in drugs for a couple of decades while gathering property worth over a fortune from the business, Baby Pankar was finally arrested by the Mumbai police in 2015. Number 4. Mera Hindley. The world has always been a scary place, and the women on this list did nothing to make it better. Here is the story of a notorious woman criminal, Mera Hindley, who was involved in the assaults and murders of children. She worked along with her partner Ian Brady, who too was involved in the crimes. Ian Brady and Mera Hindley were a ruthless predator couple who preyed on the weakest children. Testing her blind allegiance, Brady hatched plans of sexual assault and murder. At least 4 of them were sexually assaulted. The cruel acts performed by the couple were named the Moors Murders, after a rocky moorland in northern England where 2 of the victims' graves were discovered. In 1963, 25-year-old Ian Brady and 21-year-old Mera Hindley started their ambition to commit the perfect murder. In 1963, they claimed their first victim, Pauline Reed, and after a few months, their next victim, and so on. During the time frame of 2 years, the couple claimed another 4 victims. All the victims were buried in shallow graves. The couple took hundreds of pictures near the graves of their victims, possibly to relive the murders for unnatural pleasure. Hindley is characterized as the evilest woman in Britain because of her attempts to secure her release even after confessing her guilt. Later, Hindley claimed she was a reformed woman and no longer a danger to society, but she was never released. She died in 2002 at the age of 60. Ian Brady is still alive and serving his sentence. Number 3, Brenda Delgado. Rather than giving you heart palpitations and sweaty palms, love should actually give you a sense of calm when you find the real thing. But here's a tale of a woman who took the life of her ex-boyfriend's new flame. The woman couldn't move on after her breakup. She decided to murder a woman named Kendra Hatcher, her ex's new girlfriend. After the murder, Delgado left the country for Mexico, where she also holds citizenship. An assortment of Kendra's tall structures was found in the garage. Delgado utilized a road drug specialist named Christopher Liddell Love and offered him money and prescriptions to kill Kendra. Captivated by the proposed offer, he killed her by shooting Kendra in the head. The standard purpose for this kill by Brenda was done considering the way that Kendra had started dating Brenda's ex, Ricardo Paniagua. The jury required under 20 minutes to consider Brenda to be at risk of bad behavior for which she had been charged, as every one of the verification and the conditions were right away against her. Detectives found that Delgado had been tracking her ex's phone, reading his messages, and following him. During Delgado's trial, witnesses testified that she was obsessed with her ex and had previously tried to enlist friends to attack Paniagua, Hatcher, or both. She communicated that the avocation behind moving to Mexico after the murder was because she couldn't bear the expense of an attorney. She was removed from Mexico under the condition that she would not be getting any death penalty. Number 2, the White Widow. Number 2, the White Widow. Be it the robbers, murderers, serial killers, and drug lords, every other day we find someone new entering the crime world. Samantha, also known as the White Widow, first came into limelight in 2005. She's been on the run for almost 15 years. Over these years, she has become one of the world's most wanted fugitives. But how did an unassuming white British woman turn into a global enigma with a deep terror connection? Samantha was born in Northern Ireland and raised outside London. At the age of 17, she converted to Islam after her parents separated. She was the wife of Jermaine Lindsay, who was a terrorist bomber that shook London in 2005. Her husband would go on to blow himself up as one of the suicide bombers of the devastating 7/7 London subway attacks. Samantha claimed that she had no clue about Jermaine's intentions, and that he was apparently a loving husband and father. This claim about being in the dark, however, was strongly contested as time went on. An inquest found that she had made associations with the ringleader of the bombers before the attack. She was also heavily criticized for selling her story to a newspaper for a massive sum of money, wherein she portrayed herself as an ignorant victim. Soon after, she fled the country and was believed to be hiding in Tanzania or Somalia. Once she was untraceable, there were numerous sightings of her around the world, mostly in connection to bombings and brutal terror attacks. Cops who raided her house after she fled found guns, explosives, articles on how to make bombs, and even a self-written poem dedicated to Osama bin Laden in there. All in all, Lewthwaite is accused of causing the deaths of more than 400 people. She's been known to train her children in carrying out bombings and following her legacy to spread terrorism worldwide. Interpol is looking for her, and so is the CIA and Kenyan intelligence. Let's hope one day they can finally catch this elusive killer. Number 1. The Pokianchis. These female serial killers and murderers are the worst of the worst and give the people the creeps just as much as Hannibal Lecter. It may seem like a story based on fiction, but it's not. It really happened, and in this case, reality surpassed fiction. The Pokianchis were history's most feared Mexican women serial killers. The sisters owned a series of brothels in Guanajuato, and they would kill women who were no longer of any use to them. If killing and prostituting women wasn't enough, they buried them alive. It is believed that between 1945 and 1964, they committed around 150 murders. The sisters were a product of a dysfunctional family. They owned several brothels in Guanajuato and Jalisco and were involved in human trafficking, kidnapping teenagers, and forcing them to work as prostitutes. The captives earned debts from the clothes and food provided by the Pokianchis and were forced to work in order to pay them back. When a woman turned 25 or, quote, became ugly in their eyes, they would send them away to a verdugo, which is the Spanish name given to a man with the job of torturing. The girls were starved to death and beaten until they couldn't move anymore. After that, they were sent to another place to be buried alive or thrown off of a rooftop. If someone got pregnant, she wasn't of any value anymore. Both mother and child were killed without even a thought given. On conducting a raid of the premises, police discovered 90 buried women, charred fetuses, and human bones. After several months of investigation, confrontation, and interrogations, the Gonzalez Valenzuela sisters were arrested and charged with kidnapping, human trafficking, and aggravated homicide, giving them the maximum penalty at the time of 40 years in prison. However, 2 of them died behind bars before being released. Number 10, Cash Money Murder. In 2021, a young stripper from the UK had an amazing night at work, earning over £8,000 in one shift. Mihaela Sasserman was showered with riches by an extremely wealthy customer. Another dancer at the same club, Gemma Lyons, tried to get some cash out of the client too, but was turned away. This sparked jealousy and rage. Later that night around 3 a.m., Gemma and her boyfriend, Nicholas Proctor, decided to rob Mihaela. After work, Proctor waited outside of the club in a van. He then followed the victim as she left, and when she stopped to have a cigarette, he attacked her, hitting her in the head while he tried to grab the money. Mihaela was left bruised with a nasty cut on the side of her head. When authorities arrested the couple, Gemma sobbed, either remorseful for her crime or sad that she got caught. Proctor was given 5 years in jail for the assault and robbery, while his girlfriend was only given 2. Number 9, Wrong Address. In December 2020, a 26-year-old man was almost shot to death after he showed up to the address he thought he was sent, ready to work. Steve Macon made a living as an exotic dancer. He was hired by a group of 12 women to come to a bachelorette party and give them a show. Sadly for Steve, he read the address wrong. Instead of going to Altrace Court like he was supposed to, the man showed up at Altrace Lane. After knocking on the door, a young woman greeted him, and at the time, Macon was dressed in the full stripper policeman getup. His costume must have been pretty convincing too, because just a few seconds after the door was opened, several men rushed to the door with guns and started firing. These suspects were apparently gang members who panicked after seeing a cop show up to their door. Wilma Johnson, a nearby neighbor, witnessed the whole thing. Despite seeing the crime unfold before her, Wilma didn't call the authorities because she believed Macon was an actual cop too. She figured he had things under control as he desperately ran away from the bullets flying towards him. After running for nearly 2 miles or just about 3 kilometers, Steve finally thought he was far enough away and called for help. Paramedics found him unconscious in a parking lot with 5 gunshot wounds. Luckily, Macon will survive, but he'll likely be traumatized for the rest of his life. Number 8, Love Triangle. In April 2018, the body of 29-year-old Bo White was found in his West Virginia home, but not all of Bo was there. His head was discovered near the property in a secluded forested area. During his life, Bo and his father James knew a woman named Rowena Cheryl Mills. James and Mills had been involved sexually for many years. Mills earned money as a stripper working at a local club. But here's the kicker. It's believed that Bo and Mills also had a similar relationship. The young man was mainly a shut-in who liked staying at home and keeping to himself. He didn't have a job and got money from disability pensions. Investigators think that Mills may have been offering Bo sexual favors in exchange for his prescription medication. The 43-year-old woman was a known drug addict. This fact was even used as an argument by her own lawyer. She's the primary suspect in Bo's murder case because the last night of his life, Mills texted Bo and asked if he wanted to meet up. This was on March 31st, the day before his body was discovered. Authorities claim that she beat the man to death, then used a knife to separate his head. A court witness even testified under oath that Mills asked to borrow a chainsaw, but refused her. After the killing, she dug through Bo's pockets, took his money and medicine, then texted the same friend simply saying, "Let's party." Her vehicle was even in the victim's driveway after the murder. Despite all the evidence, Mills' defense claimed that Bo's father was the one who killed him. They made the argument that James grew jealous over the growing connection between his son and Rowena and couldn't take it. Thankfully, the judge and jury didn't buy it. Rowena Mills was found guilty of first-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Number 7, Dream Boys Nightmare. Whether you love them or hate them, strip clubs have remained a staple activity for countless bachelor and birthday celebrations. But one 21st birthday party involving male strippers didn't go over very well in 2017. 8 women celebrating their friend's big day decided to visit the Tiger Club in Manchester. One of the most popular shows the establishment has to offer is Dream Boys, which the girls were looking forward to seeing. It features several male strippers. One of them was Tyson Cross. After his performance, the women claim that Tyson came up to talk to them while they were at the bar. They say he was flirting, but it quickly turned aggressive. Once the girls told him repeatedly that they were all spoken for and in happy relationships, his anger only grew. Multiple people tried to calm Tyson down, but he just pushed one of the women out of the way. Others stepped in to try and help their friend, but they were targeted as well. Police were eventually called, and Cross was immediately fired from his job. Some of the young women reported facial injuries, with one even having cut on her eye after the fight. What was supposed to be a fun night out with friends quickly turned into one of the worst birthdays ever. And now for number 6. But first, we want to give a shout out to FaZe Beast and Cindy Livesy. Thanks so much for watching and supporting the channel. If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and join the Bad Badger family. Number 6, Obsession. Abigail Saldana worked as a stripper at Rick's Cabaret in Fort Worth, Texas. One of the young women's regular clients was 54-year-old Stanley Sliga. On October 26, 2021, witnesses described seeing a vehicle full of bullet holes drive off of a highway exit ramp and onto a patch of grass near the airport. Once authorities got to the scene, they determined that the driver of the car, Abigail, was dead. Suspiciously, just hours before her death, Stanley made a post on Instagram. He claimed that he would report the young woman for prostitution after paying her $3,000. Stanley labeled himself as a victim, saying Abigail lied to him and told him they had a future together. The two had supposedly been seeing each other since July 2021, and while Abigail believed it was just a transactional work relationship, Stanley obviously thought it was more. But the story gets more interesting. Another social media post made by Abigail revealed that she had found a tracking device in her car and believed it belonged to Stanley. She also claimed that he had been constantly harassing her. A traffic camera nearby Abigail's house captured a red truck belonging to Stanley following her vehicle and passing by her home multiple times. After the killing, a SWAT team was sent to the suspect's home, where they found him with multiple self-inflicted wounds. Stanley is now being held in prison awaiting trial on $250,000 bond. Number 5, Killing the Boss. Police originally thought the death of James Mulrennan was self-inflicted, but after more digging, they realized what actually happened. In December 2016, James fell 5 stories out of his apartment balcony and died later on in the hospital. It seemed fairly simple. He jumped and maybe even fell, until investigators saw his home. Almost every corner was covered by splotches of blood. Duct tape and zip ties were also found at the scene. For work, James was the manager of the Dollhouse, a strip club in Orlando, Florida. One of his employees was 24-year-old Mandy Mae Jackson. Mandy Mae and her boyfriend Scott Michael Love were spotted on his apartment's security cameras. The footage also shows the couple running to a vehicle 1 minute after a 911 call reported the fall from the balcony. Apparently, the suspect shot at the victim, hitting him in the leg before he jumped off the balcony. They also robbed him and used his credit card at Walmart just 2 hours later. For her crimes, the former exotic dancer Mandy Mae Jackson is now serving life in prison. Number 4, Good Samaritan. On August 1st, 2017, Ralph Cross was murdered. After stopping on the side of the road to help 4 women, he was shot in the back. The women included Brittany Curry, Ponesha Taylor, Letitia Dotson, and Jonisha Simmons. All of them worked as exotic dancers in Tennessee to earn money. Cross was just trying to do the right thing and help the women out. They apparently had a flat tire, and he went out of his way for them, buying a new tire for the girls and even some food. After this, he brought them all to his home so they could stay the night. A witness reported seeing Ralph early the next morning arguing with some of the girls. All of a sudden, a loud noise went off, and 3 of the women ran out of Ralph's home towards the 4th girl, who was sitting in a car in the front of the property. Police were called to the scene, and they discovered Cross's dead body, with a bullet wound in his back. Inside Cross's home, couch cushions were turned over, and inside some of his pants pockets were turned out. A thorough investigation yielded some fingerprints that traced back to Letitia Dotson. Eventually, photos of all 4 women were circulating news programs as cops tried to apprehend them. The girls' families were able to convince them all to turn themselves in, and according to the last information released on the case, the women are all in custody awaiting sentences for the murder of Ralph Cross, a tragic Good Samaritan. Number 3, Club Skin. Have you ever had a rival? Someone who has just always gotten under your skin no matter what they do? Well, Renita Linnell Lowell from Portland sure has. She knew Shanita Turner since they were kids, but something on June 15, 2016 pushed Lowe past her breaking point. Witnesses say that the 2 women were arguing one night when things suddenly got physical. It's unclear what exactly they were so angry over, but it is clear that Lowe punched Turner in the face. Even with a bouncer doing his best to get them away from each other, Lowe managed to stab her childhood rival 3 times with a knife she had kept hidden in her purse. 23-year-old Renita worked as an exotic dancer at Tommy 2's strip club. She apparently came to the murder scene, Club Skin, after her shift was over. While being interviewed by authorities, Lowe claimed that 29-year-old Turner was the one who started the fight. And on security footage, it does show that the victim did actually choke Lowe at one point, but the outcome of the fight remains the same. Renita's lawyer made the argument that Turner had a violent past, but eventually their client admitted to the crime. She was sentenced to 15 years in prison for the murder of Shantina Turner. Number 2, Hustlers. In 2019, the hit movie Hustlers came out, starring award-winning actors like Jennifer Lopez, Constance Wu, and more. The film centered on the true life story of Rosalind Keough and several other exotic dancers she worked with while they scammed hundreds of thousands of dollars out of unsuspecting men. After their targets visited the clubs the women worked at, Rosalind and her group would give them a simple cocktail, infused with drugs like ketamine and MDMA. The drink would keep the men extremely happy, dazed, confused, and most importantly, it would make it difficult for them to remember what happened. Once they were drugged up, the girls would run up massive expenses and bills using the men's credit cards. For quite a while, the scheme worked, and it paid off big time. Until, of course, it didn't, and they were caught. Usually, the women picked out their targets very carefully, only focusing on wealthy people who had a lot to lose if news of them being at a strip club were to get out. They banked on the fact that these men likely wouldn't go public, saying that they were scammed while out on town doing things they probably shouldn't have been doing. One victim, named Dr. Zayed Kevarkas Yunin, didn't fall for it though. After one of the girls scammed him out of $135,000, he told his story, and soon enough, other men came forward along with criminal charges against the suspects. Rosalind got off relatively easy. By pleading guilty to her crimes, she avoided any prison time. Keough later went on to write a book about her story. Number 1, Dallas Cabaret. Earlier this year in June, a 32-year-old mother of 3 named Shalonda Anderson was shot to death outside of a popular strip club, XTC Cabaret, Dallas. The business later released surveillance footage of the incident. Anderson allegedly drove her car into a group of security guards and pinned a 26-year-old female security guard between her car and another vehicle. Police and the club said the security guard shot Anderson and a second guard also fired, but missed. The same night, her and some of her friends were asked to leave the businesses after an argument broke out. Anderson was upset over the change she was given after closing out her tab. Some friends that night claimed the security guards were pushing them out the door. XTC Cabaret released a statement to the public offering condolences to those involved in the incident. They even offered to pay for the mother's funeral. But friends and family members of Anderson believe there's more to the story. One of the guards who fired shots at Shalonda have been arrested, but information on the case continues to be released as investigations continue. Thanks for watching. Have you ever been to a strip club? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe to see more awesome videos from Bad Badger. We'll see you next time.